Hello everyone, in this video we'll be looking at how I found my PPPoE credentials. The point-to-point protocol over Ethernet is a type of connection that is used by my ISP to provide me with internet access. The reason I want to find my PPPoE credentials is that my ISP is currently restricting the admin password of my router, saying that I'll mess around with the configuration which will result in downtime for me, and even after reassuring, he did not provide me with the password. So I decided to find it on my own. Now one way to reset the password is to reset the router, but it was not feasible for me because looking at this setup, so this is the general setup through which I am getting the internet access. This is the modem which is connected to the ISP using optic fiber cable, and then there comes a cable from the modem to the TP-Link router which I am having, and it connects to the WAN port of the TP-Link router, and then I am connecting my other devices and my laptop through the LAN cable to the LAN ports on my router. So when I first turn on the router and the modem, the credentials that are present on my TP-Link router, that is for the point-to-point protocol over Ethernet credentials, is passed on to my modem to be authenticated to my ISP. If I reset my router to change the admin password, I will lose the credentials present inside the router, and then when I set up the router again after resetting it, I won't be able to connect to the ISP. Now that you have understood why I want to find my PPPoE password, the option to find it was to use a setup like this. Now this is the setup I did. So basically I set up my laptop as the man in the middle between the router and the modem, so that when I turn on my router and the modem, the first thing the router will do is to provide the credentials to the modem, which will be captured by my laptop. Since I'll be creating a bridge connection on my laptop and then using Wireshark to capture the packets, I assume that the credentials will be sent over unencrypted, which would be easy to spot among the packets. Once I found out the credentials, I'll use it to connect directly to my modem without my router to check if the connection is successful and I can connect to the internet. After then, I'll reset the router and use the credentials to set up the internet connection. Enough for the theory. Now let's move on to the practical part. One important point when we connect the router to the laptop here is to connect to the WAN port of the router so that we can capture the credentials, and also to connect the second Ethernet cable here. I've used the USB to Ethernet adapter. Now let's set up the bridge connection so that we can capture the packets. So open up the terminal. First we need to enable the IP forwarding so that the packets are forwarded. I'll paste the command for that here. Make sure that you use the root account by entering the command su space hyphen and then paste the command for enabling the IP forwarding. Press enter. Next we have to apply the above changes. For that use the command sysctl-p. Press enter. After that make sure the repositories are up to date by using the command sudo apt update. I have already updated the repositories here, so I will not run that again. Next we need to install the packages that we will use to create the bridge. For that use the command sudo apt install bridge-utils. Since we are in the root user, we don't need to use the sudo. Press enter. After installing the bridge utils, we need to create the bridge connection by using the following command. This will create a bridge named br0. Press enter. Before we add both the interfaces to the bridge connection, we need to check the interface names. For that use the command ip space a. I can see two Ethernet connections. This is the inbuilt Ethernet that is on my laptop and it is connected to my modem, and this is the secondary Ethernet that is a USB adapter and it is connected to my modem. Note these two Ethernet names. To add the two interfaces to the bridge connection, we use the previous brctl command and specify add interfaces and the bridge connection that we created earlier, and then the two interfaces that we noted earlier, and then press enter. Now we need to bring the interface up. Before we do that, let's turn off the router and modem. After turning off the router and modem, press enter. Now we need to install Wireshark. For that use the command apt install Wireshark -y. Press enter. I already installed the Wireshark. Now to open, simply type the command Wireshark. We'll have to move into the normal user before we use the Wireshark. For that enter exit. Now type the same command using sudo. This is the interface of Wireshark. So we'll have to monitor the bridge interface which we created earlier. Double click on it. As you can see, there is no traffic for now because we haven't started the router and modem yet. So I'll start it. Once the router and the modem boots up, there will be some traffic flowing through this bridge interface. As you can see, there is already some traffic flowing through. Once you start receiving the request, you can see some echo requests and then we'll get request like authenticate request, which mentions the user ID and the password, and that it will specify the source and destination from your router to the destination. Once the authentication is successful, you will get a message like this. Now if we click on the authenticate request, we can see the contents of PPP password authentication protocol, and then if we open it, we can see the data inside it by double clicking it, and then we'll get the ID and then the password, which we can use to connect to the modem after we reset the router. Once we have found out the username and the password for the PPPoE credentials, we can go on to verify that by creating a new connection on the laptop. So I'll click on the plus symbol there to create a new connection. Click on DSL, enter the username and password for the protocol that I found earlier. Make sure that the send PPPoE echo packets is turned on, and then link negotiation to be automatic. We also have to do another configuration, that is to change the MAC address of this connection so that it mimics the router that is trying to connect to the modem. So I'll enter the MAC address of the router WAN address. You can find this address by looking into the packet capture where the router tries to authenticate with the modem, and you can find the source address and put it here. After we have done that, we can see that the PPPoE connection is connected. Now if I type IP space R, I can see the private address that is received